Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is you're having today. It's November 7th, 2023, and you are in Paradigm Shifters. Woo!
We're
Tran-
here.
we are here. Transformation Tuesday. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Paradigm Shifters. The history of this is we've been going strong every Tuesday since March of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah. And it started off with a handful of people and an idea. You know how these ideas drop on. Well, what if we could be a force for good on the entire planet? So,
Mm,
Paradigm Shifters, we are a dedicated global, I love global, 57 countries, community
beautiful.
dedicated to shift and uplift the planet.
Woo! Let's do this thing, right?
Let's do it. Yeah. So every month we have a topic, a different topic. And the cool thing about these topics, they kind of emerge from what's going on out there in the common hour, thinking maybe how we could shift our perception. Harvest the good is the topic for November. So
Mm.
before I introduce, I'm so excited to hear Kristen. I can't tell you. But before that, I would really, really love to kick off this month with a poem that I heard. Are you up for that?
I'm up for it.
All right. So let's take a deep breath in here. This beautiful month of November 2023. Harvesting the good. And there's a poem called The Dash by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For that death represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash.
Mm.
So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never, ever loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while.
Mm.
So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? Isn't that cool? So,
That
boom.
brought tears to the eyes today.
Well, I want to introduce everyone here in Paradigm Shifters and all over to Kristen Kosinski. And Kristen is a colleague of mine. She's a coach and consultant and founder of the Samburu Project, and that you studied speech and communication and business at Penn State University. Yes. So, what I do know about you is that you're a very dedicated mom
Mm-hmm.
and also an expert at harvesting the good. So, I would love to turn this in at, come on in here, welcome. How are you harvesting? I would love to
Well,
know a little bit about
thanks
you.
for having me.
Go for it. It's all yours.
Thank you for having me. It's interesting. I think in terms of harvesting the good, it's like an opportunity that we have in any moment of any day. Like there's always a moment. I was just, as I told you before, I was on the golf course this morning, and that's some good that I have the freedom to play golf with a women's golf club on Tuesday mornings, and we were talking about it like as we were walking down it's 9 holes, the ninth fairway, like that we get to be there on a Tuesday morning playing golf. And I'm in Santa Monica, California. I mean, it's so beautiful here right now. And that, there's so many things happening in the world where people are at the level of fact having really, major challenges right now. And that I get to play golf this morning. And sometimes we don't have the best shots or whatever that is, or someone on the course isn't friendly. But it's like in those moments we can just keep remembering. And I think that's the thing. And I think that's really what I've so much focused my life on, is that being in that remembering that there is goodness at every turn, at every stop. And just like for me, I'm so grateful that I have that recognition that life is good, like truly is good. And getting better and better and better and better at it
Well,
as I've
I know that
gone
you.
on.
Um, I've kind of watched you on your journey with your son,
Yeah.
and I would love. We have so many moms in here and grandmas, and who are watching the journey of the next generations. And I
Yes.
would love to know a little bit of stories about perhaps when the dash wasn't so good, or when it was,
Oh,
how you
yeah.
navigated that dash, and what
Yeah, that's a great
kept you
question.
going as a mom.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My journey as a mom was unexpected, in that at the age of 38, I became pregnant with my son in a way that was not planned. And I had made a decision. This is sort of interesting. I had made a decision at that time in my life. I was very career orientated. I had been an executive at Paramount before I started the Samburu Project. And at that time I was running the Samburu Project, which is an organization that provides clean drinking water to communities in northern Kenya. So I was doing international development work, living in Los Angeles. And suddenly God blessed me with a baby. And I had made this decision that, like, if I hadn't found the right partner and everything wasn't all perfect, that I wasn't having a child, although there was a part of me that really yearned to have a baby. Um, and so I didn't think that I was capable of raising a child on my own. So ultimately, uh, his father really hasn't been in the picture. And when he was young at the level of fact, there was a lot of challenges with that. There was a long court case that went on for 3+ years. A lot of fear, doubt, and worry that happened during that time when, my son was really at a tender age. We were in court from the time he was 3 until he was about 6. And, all the while I was running this organization and I was being a solo mom. I was raising him on my own. And so, yeah, there was a lot of time where the anxiety was present. And I had a lot of time there where I was questioning my faith, like the faith of, like, would it all work out? Like, would it all come together? Would it all be right? Oh, it just like brings tears to my eyes, like looking back on that. And I just, I remember my mother said to me, Kristen, it all works out if you live long enough. And I was like, but what if I don't? And she
Oh,
was like, well, then you'll be dead. It doesn't matter. And then the other piece of advice she gave me during this time was, those who don't quit win.
those who don't quit win. Write that down, you
Those who
guys.
don't quit win. Those who
Ellen.
don't quit win. And I had a teacher that I worked with for 12 years. And right before the court case happened with my son's father, her name was Mona Miller, and she's one of the angels of my life. I have a book here that she wrote this is one of the texts that I teach. It's called Invisible Warfare. It's all of Mona's work in it, and she's extraordinary. And she passed away in 2011, just when this whole thing was happening. And I was like, but she told me before she died, she said, Kristen, just take all the actions, like just go through the steps, do exactly what you're supposed to do in this process. She was referring to the court process. Just do all the steps, take all the steps, you know, and when you do that, it'll all work out. So between Mona and my mom, I took this piece of advice, and I had to do a lot of emotional processing during that time. I wasn't as keen on my vision work yet. But I did a lot of processing work, emotional processing work to get through at that. And um, what an amazing journey it was. I wouldn't give it up for the world. So since 2014, I got full physical and legal custody of my son. And I have raised him on my own. And like, it's just been such an incredible, incredible journey. Really, maybe the most amazing thing is this incredible opportunity to watch a human being evolve up close and personal.
And I'm just like, I want you to continue, but I want to pause here
Mm-hmm.
and reminding myself is that you were 38. So it was the exact time in your life that you, whatever, I don't even want it, that I just want to say, wow, wow. Keep going, because I see you so, oh my gosh, as a loving, kind mom, that perhaps this whole everything in your life came to this point. So keep
Yeah.
going.
I mean, it could have easily not have happened. um, yeah. So it was, yeah, the fact that I really had sort of decided that it probably wasn't going to happen. I think in my mind, I had maybe decided that, because I didn't have maybe the whole belief that I would find the exact right person to have a child with, and I was 38. And so, I had some limiting beliefs and some paradigms around that. But God obviously had something else in store for me,
So it's
because
2014 and you're
no, this is when I had my son, it was 2008.
8. So
I became pregnant in 2007.
let's fast forward into your solo mom thing, because what I'm seeing is this incredible young man. And tell me some of the choices that you've made or
I mean,
decisions.
talk about harvesting the good. So, when I had him, I'm a little bit of a hippie. I thought that like I would be able to have my son and run my company at the same time. And like he would just come to work with me until he went to kindergarten. And then when he was about 6 months old, I was like, oh my lands, this is too much. Like I can't, and mostly not because I couldn't handle the workload, so to speak, but because I felt like I was being pulled in two different directions. You know how that mom thing is. It's like, it was like my body was being pulled apart. Like the work, which was my first baby. I mean, the work in Africa was a realization of a childhood dream. I was feeling this, like I had just launched this thing like 2 years before Adrian was born. So I was like, I'm still on this track. And then my baby needed me, and I love being a mom. Like I mean, I still love it. I love my baby so much. And I just wanted to be with him all the time. So it was very hard to work and have him with me at the same time. So I was so blessed. When he was 6 months old, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to do this? This is like, I don't know how. And at the level of fact, I did not have the resources to spend a lot of money for like a nanny. I had just started a nonprofit, which I made the decision for the first 3 years to not take a salary, to spend my savings. So I had not lined everything up to prepare to have a baby. And at the level of fact, I really had very little money in the bank, almost none. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? But I took the steps that I could. And there was a preschool in Santa Monica that was very well known. And I called them and I was like, hey, can I come in for a tour? And then I was like, and do you have any scholarships? Do you have anything like that? And so I set up the tour, and then somebody called me about, the director called me like a couple of days later before the tour. And she said, she left me a message, and then I called her back and I never heard from her. And then I went on the tour, And this place is magical. It's called the Growing Place in Santa Monica. There's 3 locations. I actually do consulting work for them. And I was like, oh my gosh, this place is incredible. And at the end of the tour, I said to the director, I said, hey, you called me and left me a message, but I didn't hear back from you. And she goes, oh, Adrian was born in May 2008. This was November. So 6 months later. She goes, she handed me a piece of paper and she goes, do you qualify for these things? And it was like amount of money or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, can you fill this paperwork out tonight and get it back to me by tomorrow morning? And I was like, yeah. They have a grant from the city of Santa Monica and they had to spend the money before the end of the year. We know that things like this happen, right?
You
And I was like, oh,
no mistakes. There's no mistakes. And I just,
so I
as a level of fact, too, there's no mistakes. You and I are talking. The exact same thing just happened for my granddaughter in Florida. And she is at the very best school. But it was like what you're saying is like, oh, you're telling. And that.
Yeah, so you know what this is all about. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Here's what I'm noticing as the grandma, okay? I'm noticing the persistence of the mama, my daughter, and you, that it was very, very important for an incredible education, right? And the best. You didn't know how. It was there.
No, there was no how. It was impossible. To know the how would have been impossible. But I took the steps, right? I made the call, I did the thing, I followed up with the thing, and I mean, it was crazy, Judy. Like literally the tuition was like a month was like, at the time was like $1,800 a month or something, right? And my initial payment was $150 to be in like the most extraordinary place you could ever imagine. Like amazing. So then my baby was like in this, and he was a baby still. He was 6 months old. And I mean, he was in a place that was like made for little humans, like the most incredible educators, the most beautiful space. I remember when I went in, like when he was about, and by the way, just so you know, and everybody else, I cried literally every single day for 1 year after I dropped him off. Like I cried. I was like, it was so painful for me to leave my child, even though I was leaving them in this amazing place. The place was like in a U and there was a courtyard. So I would go out of the classroom into the courtyard, back into like what was the office, and then out to my car. And it was like a big joke between me and the office manager. Like, here she is again. She's bawling her eyes out, leaving a baby. But I have to tell you something. A year after, I was like, holy shit. I was like, my son is actually in a place that was better than him being with me all day long. Like a place with his peers. So there was 12 children in that classroom. Years later, he was playing all-star baseball and there was like 5 of them on the team. Like these boys were still together, like, and still are friends now. Like he made all these incredible attachments with other people and like I learned how to be a parent from the teachers. They taught me how to parent. They taught me how to speak to my child. They taught me like how extraordinarily capable little humans are. And we don't even know it. I mean, one day when he was 9 months old, I walked into the class. It wasn't a class. I can't even explain it. It's so beautiful. I walked into the space that was like, there was all these different areas. And he was like in what was the changing table, like where the changing table was. And he was up on like a 3-step ladder, like step stool, washing his own hands by himself. And he was 9 months old. And I was like, he knows how to do that? And they're like, yeah, like they're so capable. And so I learned so much. We developed this incredible community of people, families, children, teachers, just incredible. And I could afford it. They made it so I could afford it. It was so amazing that he actually stayed there for 6 years. He's been the longest student ever to stay there because he started at 6 months old. The earliest thing go is at 3 months, and he stayed through the age of 6. I put him in TK for a year because I was like, "This is, like, so amazing." So anyway, that's how it all began.
Okay, so I think that fast forward to 2023, and you mentioned that word potential. And in one of our core values, it's like we believe in people, right?
Yeah.
We know that there's more power and potential in each one of us. And it's allowing and becoming aware of that potential and growing, not just for our kids, it's for every single person, adult, parent,
Yeah.
wherever you are. And that to me is something called harvesting the good. And
Right.
yeah, so tell me
Well,
more.
and how important is it for our children
Yeah,
to see us living into our potential?
that's what I mean.
Like,
Yeah,
the modeling is so important, right? Like, the modeling is everything. So, it's like, well, if mama's not living into her potential, then how does Adrian learn to live into his potential? Or, I could talk about it all till I'm blue in the face, but if I'm not also modeling it and doing it, what good is that?
there you go. So
Yeah.
what would you? Uh, so so now fast forward, and how old is he, and where is he?
So
But
now
not
he's
letting go,
15.
right?
He's 15. And this is, also brings tears to my eyes. He started in this fall, in September, at a boarding school in Pennsylvania. And you heard a bit about that journey as I was going along that journey this last year.
Well,
But my
that's when I met
son,
you, and I
yeah,
was so impressed by your process
yeah.
of letting go,
Mm.
also letting him have the say or whatever. Very, very. As far as I'm looking, my past is like as an educator and all that fun stuff too, and like, oh,
By
okay,
the way, I was a teacher too. I taught for 3 years, elementary school,
yeah. So so tell
in
me.
my early days. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and continue about that.
So Adrian came to me like a year and a half ago, and he was like, "Mom, I want to go to Taft, which is a boarding school in Connecticut." And I was like, "What?" I mean, I was all excited because he went to kindergarten late that I was gonna have him for an extra year at home until he was 19. And I was like, "What? You're not going to boarding school?" And then I was like, "Kristen, listen to yourself. Like, you're in the business of helping people like identify and follow their dreams, right? Like to manifest their dreams." I'm like, "Your son is telling you, I want to go to boarding school. And how could I say no? Like, how could that be a no? Like, that's impossible to be a no." So then I was like, "Okay, well, what could I do where I am with what I have? I can go online to Taft and order the book, like get the lookbook." So I did that because then I got on their list and we were invited to an event to go to an admissions event that they were having in Marina Del Rey. And then it's like, the process just, took on a life of its own. But it turned out, and this is divine too, is that I had a friend of a friend of mine who I knew, an acquaintance, who worked at another before her daughter was at another boarding school. And she saw my name on the list and she called me, and because the admissions event was for 10 schools. It's called the 10 schools admissions organization. So it's 10 Northeastern boarding schools. She saw the name. She goes, "Oh, you're interested in Hill School." And I was like, "I don't even know what Hill School is." But she reached out to me. And so she put this school on our radar, even though it wasn't the school that initially inspired my son to go to boarding school. By the way, the reason that he was interested in boarding school is that he's a lacrosse player and he wanted to go east to play lacrosse for more lacrosse opportunities. Anyway, so Hill School gets on our radar. We end up looking at Taft and Hill School and some other schools. We applied to about 5 schools. And Adrian ended up being accepted to a lot of the schools, but was accepted to the Hill School, and that's where he ultimately decided to go. But it was an 11th hour decision. I mean, at the very end, what was interesting is the mother coaching a child through this process while having my own feelings about it. It's like at the end, he was like, I want to wait till next year. What do we call that? Delay. He wanted to delay it. And I was like, but the opportunity is sitting right here. The opportunity is now. And if you think you want to do it next year, I'd say you do it this year. I had to take myself out of it completely.
Right, because as a
And
coach, yeah.
and then you do it. And then if you don't love it, then you come back home.
There you go.
So it was a very interesting process. And what's so sweet for me about the whole thing is that I have a child who is really, really knows what he's passionate, something that he's truly passionate about, that he really loves. You know, it's like he can't wait to practice lacrosse. He cannot wait to like go and do whatever they do. He loves it. I never felt that way as a 15-year-old. I didn't have something that I loved that much, that he loves it so much. And so now he's he's got an amazing coach. I mean, lacrosse season hasn't even happened yet, but he went to Hill School. He went for preseason. He went before school began in August to do the preseason with the soccer team. And he actually got a place on the varsity soccer team at Hill School. So he's just completed the varsity soccer season. And now he's going to get ready for lacrosse, which is in the spring. So he's following his dreams.
Yeah, so to go back to this, and then and as far as like tying the focus up is, harvesting the good, even when it feels like shaky or your emotions get in there, and like, what am I going to do when I don't have my son around? Like, well, wait a minute, let's.
Well, it's outside of our comfort zone, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
staying in
not
the
in our
growth
comfort zone.
process. So, um, what I would like to like, if you could give like one tool to parents, whoever it is out there, to keep in the forefront as they're making decisions with their kids or anyone, what is a tool that you use that you would like to pass on?
Mm.
Hmm.
I mean, if we talk particularly about this situation and our process, because it was a process, as you witnessed, I helped him hold his vision for his dream. I mean, we sat and I said, what would you, we did the whole thing. What would you love? Like, it's 8 years from now and you're graduating from college. What does it look like? Where are you? Who are you with? Where are you going? And he was so, so clear about his vision. And then I was like, well, then let's reverse engineer it. Like, what's the best decision today? What step can you take where you are with what you have to move in that direction? I mean, you know, there's many different roads, right? But it's like, what road would make the most sense today? Like, feels like the one that feels most aligned today with that. And yeah, and so I held that for him. I held the space for him to do that. So I think maybe the piece of advice that I have for parents with younger children, not adult children, but kids or teenagers, is like, don't underestimate their ability to hold their dream, to have a dream. And then we get to hold that for them. Like, okay, I heard this and I'm going to repeat it back to you because I know it's not in your, like, moving 3,000 miles away as a 15-year-old was not in his comfort zone. It wasn't in my comfort zone as a mom. It wasn't in either of our, and it's just been the two of us really, right? For 15 years. Like, we have a unique relationship for sure. Because of the really special time we've had together. I mean, all parents have unique relationships, but we just the two of us. It was like me and I against the world.
I just love it,
Yeah.
that well, allowing your younger generation, whether it's your grandkid or your thing, to just like dream what's your
Yeah.
passion and holding it for them and letting them make their own choices along the way. Same thing with this beautiful grandson I talked about earlier who's 19. And
Mhm.
he used to, when he was growing up, he would be at the back table of my vision workshops and do
Cute.
the time machine with all
He was
these.
working the table.
He was definitely and still does. But, and when I look at him as this 19-year-old young man, who he's become in the process
Mhm.
of many, many ups and downs, he's kind, he's loving, he's generous, and people want to be around him. So he's had no problem getting jobs and getting hired at all these
Right.
places. So here's what I want to do. Let's take another deep breath in because there's so many gold nuggets that we just covered right here. And I would love to ask you, as a community of paradigm shifters, what we love to do to everyone who's come and given their wisdom is to ask you, what would you love, Kristen? What can we hold for you? And we're
Mhm.
going to hold that for you.
Thank you for asking. Actually, at our last LMC, our training a few weeks ago, the thing that I came upon that I really was like, this is what I would love to do this next year is what I would love is to have the opportunity to have one speaking engagement per week for the year where I have the chance to speak specifically in front of women, women's groups, women's organizations. Um, that's what I would love.
All right, are you ready to receive? Here
Absolutely.
we go. We get we're like generating energy all over the planet. Everybody is watching this, and what a beautiful human being you are, and how much you can give to all women and everyone. And here we go. We're generating energy, and catch it. Did
I
you catch
got it. I
it?
got it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being you.
You. Thank you. I love that you asked about my son. I mean, I've done a lot of conversations and I love that that's the direction that we took today because it's parenting is an important, it really such an important thing.
Well, until next time, to be continued. Just oh, it just blew me away with all this last. Okay, live, love, and matter, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, now hang on a second.